And we are recording. And I want to really welcome you, Dicken. And I'm really glad that you would take your time to spend a little hour or something with me.
Oh, well, it's great to be here, Esben.
And before we actually started, just wanted to ask, how much time do you have? So I will keep track on time. Do you have somewhere to be? And do you have an hour, 45 minutes, or?
I set aside an hour.
Okay, great. Then we'll be sure to release you from this conversation before you have to go.
Okay, good.
So just a little introduction, for at least from what I know, is that you have been around this work for most of your life, actually, for half of your life. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it's was 1986.
1986.
I came across the principles. I had been working for 10 years as a psychologist before I discovered the principles.
Okay. Yeah, so just for the people who will listen to this, the principles is the stuff I talk about all the time in my videos and in my coaching with people. And I don't want to get into what the principles are because that's a whole conversation in of itself, or at least it could be. But I like always when I interview people, I love to hear their journey. How did they come about this understanding, and how has it developed from where they started until, where you are now?
Well, I had been working as a psychologist and for 10 years. And I met a man named Sydney Banks. And he wasn't in the field of psychology, but it was someone told me that he was a very interesting person, very down to earth, and he was a man from Scotland with a 9th grade education who had had a profound awakening to the spiritual and psychological nature of human beings. And that I got curious because I was a seeker. I was searching for what I could learn that would help me and then help my clients have more well-being in their life. That was my passion. That's what I was looking for. And in my own search, I read everything I could in the field of psychology and spirituality. Anybody who said that they could help people. And so I was meditating 4 hours a day.
Holy shit.
I had trained myself to wake up at the end of REM sleep. So 5 times a night, I would wake up and write down in full length detail all 5 dreams I had every night and work on those. I would often write down what I was thinking and then challenge those concepts as was taught in cognitive psychology. Reframing my thinking. I had affirmation notebooks. I had structured journals. I had unstructured journals. I read at least 3 books or more a week, constantly searching for the answers. And when I met Sid Banks, basically he said, go home. He said, you can't get wisdom from another person. It's impossible. They can't give you wisdom. They can share with you what they've learned, And he said, the only place you can find what you're looking for, wisdom, happiness, well-being, you already have it, and it's deep inside of you in the quiet of your mind. And if you look there or touch that space in the quiet of your mind, your well-being will reveal itself to you. And I was intrigued by this man. He was down to earth. He was humble. He was not selling anything. He was not promoting anything. He was not trying to get you to believe anything. He's saying, I've discovered the very foundation of all human psychological functioning. He said, I've discovered that all people have a mind, all people universally have consciousness, and all people universally have thought. And they're formless energies capable of creating every bit of human experience. And I had never heard anybody in the field of psychology say there are three fundamental principles that are true for every human being, and that they're not theories and that they're not ideas, they're actual forces that exist. Just like gravity is a force that's always exists, whether people know about it or not, it's still there. And Sid is saying there's these forces that exist, whether people know about them or not. And for hundreds of years, people haven't recognized these as the most fundamental aspects of being a human being. And if you take away any one of them, you don't have a human being. You take away thought, a person would have no mental activity. You take away consciousness, they would have mental activity, but they couldn't be aware of anything in life. You take away their mind, they couldn't think. They couldn't have an experience. They wouldn't be alive, because mind is the source of all life. It's the intelligence behind life that knows how to create and operate life. Mm-hmm. So it was intriguing to me because in all of my study of psychology, and I had my doctorate in psychology, I had never heard of people talk about principles, fundamental principles. So it was powerful to begin to consider this. And then I started to learn that 100% of what I was feeling at any moment was always and only created by these principles via the power of thought, so that whatever thought was created in my head, I would feel and I would experience, and that's where my experiences were coming from. This is extremely radical. This is, in my world, I had learned all these theories for why people felt the way they did. Their biochemistry, their personality, their past, their circumstances, their genetics, their parenting, the way people treat them, whether they have their needs met or not. There was theory after theory after theory. And I had never heard that 100% of what we experience is created from these formless powers via the power of thought. So thank God we think, or we wouldn't be able to have experiences. You have a sad thought, you feel sad. You have a loving thought, you feel loving. You have a happy thought, you feel happy. You have an anxious thought, you feel anxious. And yet, nobody knows this.
Yeah.
Or we forget it. Even if we think we know it, we lose sight of it very easily. It's all of us. Is that I've asked thousands of people I've done trainings in well-being around the world, and I've asked tens of thousands of people, what are you feeling and where do you think it comes from? People will point towards something in the world that they think causes them to have their feelings. I'm stressed because I have so much work. I'm unhappy because this person won't love me. I'm happy because the sun came out. People are constantly blaming the source of their feelings on something in the world. And Sid Banks was the first person I met that there's only one source to any feeling or experience that any human being anywhere in the world could have. Only one source. It's created via the power of thought. Period. And first I had to learn for myself that when I became aware that I was a thinker, when I felt anxious, because I did a lot of thinking that made me anxious, I was a worrier. When I felt anxious, to know that it was just thought, I started seeing that when I wasn't holding on to those thoughts, they went away. And when they went away, they didn't exist. They weren't inside of me. They weren't being created. I can't tell you. I mean, I started to worry about 60% less immediately. I tell you, it's like if you have a 100-pound backpack and you take out 60 pounds, you notice it right away. So I started seeing with my clients that I was working with that whenever they were having difficulty, they were in an uncomfortable feeling. And because they didn't know that their feeling was coming from them, they kept thinking in ways that kept that feeling alive. And they kept then feeling like it was done to them by somebody or some circumstance in the world, something other than thought. Mm. And because of that, they continued to suffer. And I started realizing that not realizing the source of experience is what causes all of us to suffer when we suffer. You show me anybody who's having difficulties psychologically, I'll show you someone caught up in a lot of thinking and not knowing that that's creating their experience innocently. Mm. We just haven't been taught. Now this is being taught all over the world, and it's having remarkable results in helping people wake up out of thinking that's not helpful or necessary. That thinking falls away, and it's always replaced by thoughts and feelings that are more uplifting or more helpful.
Yeah, but I talk to a lot of people now who has seemed like to have a pretty good intellectual understanding of, oh yeah, it's my thought, it's my thinking that creates my feelings. So how can I change
An intellectual understanding doesn't help any of us. It would be like if you wanted to learn how to ride a bicycle, you went to the library and read every book on balance that you could, and you understood balance intellectually. It doesn't mean you can ride a bicycle, right? Having an intellectual understanding doesn't help you discover what lies beyond the intellect, because the intellect can't understand what lies beyond it. And universal mind, universal consciousness, universal thought are forces that lie beyond the intellect, that create the intellect, and the intellect is part of those forces, but the intellect can never understand them. Can't be done. I tried. Esben, I tried really hard to figure this out, and you can't think your way to well-being. If you're thinking about something, you won't experience well-being. You can't be happy and be thinking about something. You can't experience love when you're thinking about something. When our mind's clear, it's built into us to be happy and loving. But you can't think your way there. So an intellect won't help you get there.
No, and that's one thing, that people have an intellectual understanding of they know they are thinking, and at least they think that, okay, I know my thinking creates my feelings, but there's something out there, which my circumstances, which has also something to do with my feelings. And even when my experience is that, okay, I'm gonna say that when I work with people is, once they understand, okay, it's my thinking, then the next question is, how can I change it? What can I do now? Because this is uncomfortable. I don't want to feel like this. So how can I change the way I think? How can I change the way I feel? And
they haven't recognized thought, they've recognized thinking. Thinking is content. Thought is the power. For years, people have been trained to pay attention to the content of their experience. That's the whole field of psychology, focuses on the content of feelings, thoughts, behaviors. I'm pointing towards something that's deeper than content. So it's not a matter of realizing, oh, I have thoughts. It's a matter, I am the thinker. That I'm continually having thoughts that create my experience moment to moment, is to realize the fact of thought, the very fact of thought. It's seeing that it's being created from within rather than caused from without. If people really see thought, it throws them into the now. It throws them out of their personal thinking. And then something new and fresh can come in.
yeah.
If people don't see the fact of thought, they'll keep thinking about something. They'll think about thinking. they'll, they'll constantly be thinking. And you can't think your way to love, to happiness, to wisdom, to well-being. No one can. It's not personal. Our intellect is like a computer. You can't find love and wisdom in a computer. You find information, you can keep processing information, but it's only when we are not directly caught in our intellect that we're able to experience the well-being that we're looking for. So you can't analyze your way to wisdom. No one can. You can't analyze your way to love. You already have them. They're already here. But for our thinking, that's what we would be experiencing.
The thing I wanted to go with when we started is actually, I know someone who works at the high school, and I talked to him about maybe doing some work together, but they didn't have time. So he told me that he talked with the psychology teachers at the high school and told me to send them my material. And I had no idea what he meant. Okay, I'll try again. I had no idea what he meant by material. So I started writing, and it ended up being more like a blog than it actually what I think about as material. But what came to me, what came to me that is really needed in our youth, in the young people in the world, and for all people, is most of us is brought up to look outside for the answers. Like you told in the beginning, by reading books and ask other people, can you give me some techniques? Can you give me some strategies? Can you tell me how to handle this situation? And it seems like most of us are brought up as children by our parents has to guide it. They have to tell us what to do. And then the teachers and the social workers and everyone else we seek outside in order to find out who we are, how we should behave, what we should do. what kind of work we should do, and so on. So it seems like we forget that we have inner wisdom. We forget that we have a GPS within, and because we are so used to look outside, and we're so used to hear all our mental noise, that we have a hard time figuring out, what am I being guided to do? And I remember you talking, I think it was the masterclass you did for Supercoach this year, that you talked about the difference between living life and letting life live you. And before I came to the principles, I thought, it's all me. Everything that I'm doing is on me. I'm doing everything. I had no idea there was any power behind life that was pulling the strings. Can you talk a little about that?
Oh yeah, that's a really good topic. You know how I said there's 3 principles?
Yeah.
The principle of mind says we all have a mind. Our brain is not our mind. It's part of our mind, but it's not our mind. Our mind is what thinks us. Our mind is what runs the brain. Our mind is the intelligence behind life that knows how to create and operate life. Now, on a practical level, Esben, it's very helpful for us to discover things that are always true for everybody. What Sid Banks used to call facts rather than beliefs. It's a fact that when people's minds clear and quiet down, this deeper wisdom brings us thinking that's helpful. It brings us feelings that are more uplifting. That's why it's called wisdom. It helps us to thrive. It helps us to do well in life. Now, in a very simple manner, it brings us common sense. So any human being, when their minds are quiet, suddenly have more common sense. So that when people listen for and trust and follow their own common sense, they see that that always will lead them in the right direction. And that's how people begin to learn to be less and less dependent upon things from the outside that they think can guide you, because nothing on the outside can give you wisdom. Wisdom is a formless intelligence that breaks through into human consciousness as clarity, perspective, understanding, common sense, insights, inspiration, new ideas. So everyone is capable of having new thoughts that are helpful. And when people are having difficulty, this is interesting. When it's my observation, when adults are having difficulty, most adults tend to think harder about what's going on. And that thinking creates stress and confusion and uncertainty, and because you can't think your way to clarity, you can't think your way to insight, can't think your way to well-being. As you understand this more and more, if something is going on and you're upset, you wake up out of that thinking, fall back into the now, your mind quiets down, and then you have more clarity and more common sense to help you deal with whatever is going on. In other words, you already have wisdom. You already have the capacity for insight. It's built into everybody. No one can give it to you. It's part of our nature. So that with this understanding, you, like you said, it's hard to know that we're connected to a deeper intelligence, or until we know that, we rely on ourselves to figure everything out. Once you understand the principle of mind, once you get a sense of wisdom, you begin to see the benefit of falling open and having nothing on your mind, because that's fertile ground for something new breaking through from wisdom. So most adults, without this understanding, or when we don't have this understanding, we're searching, trying to figure stuff out, and we don't get a lot of common sense and wisdom coming through. With this understanding, you run full speed toward an open, quiet, receptive mind, because that's where you have greatest access to wisdom and well-being. That's where you'll discover your own common sense for how best to deal with any problem or situation. You begin to have more and more trust that it's within you already, and all you have to do is get your personal thinking out of the way when it's not being helpful.
And for me, at least, one of the things that has taken away a lot of the pressure is seeing that there is no right answer in any situation.
There's no answer that's right all the time in any situation. There is a right answer. It's the one that occurs to you fresh from your wisdom and common sense. And in that moment for you, that's the perfect answer. That's perfect. That's perfect right there. But there isn't any right answer that we can hold on to. It's when we let go of our ideas and beliefs that our common sense arises and brings us what we need. Wisdom brings us thoughts that are responsive to our problems and situations.
I think that's one of the big things is we have an idea is about there is the right way to be, and you can, that's really abstract, but the right way to behave in a relationship, the right way to live, the right way to look, the right way to eat, the right work, and so on. And we think that this right way is our gateway to living a happy life.
Yeah. I know. I thought that. I was looking for answers that I could hold on to. And the paradox is when you don't hold on to any thought, your mind clears and you automatically have more perspective. You automatically start thinking with greater clarity. You already have more common sense available to you. They're gifts that are given freely to any human being who's open-minded and receptive. But in order to discover that, you have to leave the known, what you already know, and fall into the unknown. In order to fall into the unknown, you have to have trust that there is an intelligence there that will come forward.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you begin to see that that's always been true and it always will be true. People struggle with problems, they go to sleep, they wake up in the morning, their head is clear, and then they get an answer. You can't remember somebody's name, you're trying really hard to remember it, you stop thinking about it, and it occurs to you, right? It's very practical. Wisdom will bring you thinking that is extremely practical for dealing with every moment of your life. And you can't think your way to that common sense or that wisdom.
But I love that example about it. I remember probably a couple of times a day something occurs and suddenly it's gone.
Yeah.
And in my mind, the thought that came was brilliant. And I tried to figure out what it was, and try to think my way to it. But the funny thing is, you can't think your way to it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why you can't, but you don't really know what it is. So you don't know where to look, maybe in which direction to go. But as soon as I let go, at some point it will show up. It seems like it works. That's a system you can rely on, that it will show up every time when you let go. And that's probably what you I've talked about the last 30 minutes, is the harder you try, the cloudier your mind gets.
Well, trying is thinking.
Yeah.
And it's thinking that generates tension or stress. If you really see that, you let go of any thoughts that create tension or stress, because tension and stress closes us down to the emergence of wisdom. Right? When our minds are relaxed and open, we're built for insight. We're built to be uplifted. We're built to see more clearly. It's already within us to do that. Yeah, it's a very old metaphor, Esben, but I love metaphors.
Yeah.
It's probably the oldest metaphor for psychology or even spirituality. It goes back thousands of years. The metaphor is very simple. It's clouds, blue sky, and sun. And that when we're caught up in our personal thinking, it can create feelings of tension, stress, upset. When we are not caught up in that thinking, we come back to the now, which is, in other words, we fall into this open space of blue sky that's untouched by all the thought storms. And as we're resting as that blue sky, the clouds part. And when the clouds part and there's blue sky, the sun shines through with warmth and nourishment. So warmth is, we feel better, we feel more connected. And nourishment is, we get thoughts that are helpful, common sense. Right? Everybody works that way all the time, whether they know it or not. So at times when people are enjoying what they're doing or are happy, that just means their head has cleared of all that. That's all it means. Then that inner light of consciousness shines through. That inner light of wisdom shines through, bringing warmth and nourishment. Very simple. Very simple. The principles help simplify. That's the nature of a principle. It brings it back to what's most fundamental. We all think, we all can be aware, we're all conscious beings. We're all have a connection to an intelligence that knows how to create our experience, knows how to bring us what's helpful when our ego or our personal thinking is out of the way. Understanding that changed my life. Simplified it and changed it. Anytime I felt tension, stress, or upset, That feeling let me know I was just caught in my own personal thoughts. Recognizing that, I'd let go of everything I was thinking. Everything, not some of it, not start thinking about something else. I'd let go of thinking about everything. That's what's called the now. The now is free of personal thought. And when I would fall into the now without trying and without doing anything, I would feel better and I would get a higher quality of thinking coming into my mind. More loving, more understanding, more creative, more helpful. That's the essence of all creativity.
So there has been this big discussion I've seen in the community, 3P community, about free will.
Yeah, I know.
Have you followed that discussion?
Yeah, it's really, to me, it's really quite simple.
Yeah, I'd like to hear your opinion.
I'm a free thinker. Right now, I can think about something, or I can come back to the now and disengage from my intellect. This laptop is a tool. I can use it or I can not use it.
Mm.
My personal mind, my intellect, is a tool that can be used wisely or unwisely depending on how we use it. Right? So I have free will. I can think about things. I can let go of thinking about things anytime I want to. That's a choice. It's a choice I make. And if I have thoughts come into my head that are upsetting, I have a choice whether I pay attention to them or not. And I have a choice about whether I get caught up in them or not. Whether I know it or not, I always have that choice. It's built into us to have that choice. Every human being can make that choice. We're free thinkers. Now, the more that I come to understand these principles, the more I can use my intellect wisely. In other words, I love thinking about things. I love using my intellect. I love having ideas and concepts. It's very helpful. It's the foundation of language and communication. It's really cool that we can have concepts and ideas. But when I start feeling tension or upset, it's letting me know I'm now trying to use my intellect, my computer, for something it wasn't designed for. You can never, no one can, it's not personal. You can't get love or understanding or wisdom from a computer. You can't. You won't find it there. You can Google all kinds of shit. It's wonderful. I love Google. If you want information, but information doesn't help people deal with life.
Mm.
Insights do. Common sense does. Clarity, perspective. You get those automatically when you disengage from the computer. That's free will. So at a higher level of understanding, when I feel tense, I can fall open to new thought. You can fall open to new thought.
I think there will be some people who are caught up in something and they think about it all the time, and they will say, I can't stop thinking about it.
I know.
I've tried to stop thinking about it and I just can't stop thinking about it.
If people haven't realized that it's just thought, they'll think that those thoughts are true. If they didn't, like, for example, one time I had this insight. What would happen if every thought I had was in Chinese? Would I be able to stop thinking about something? Well, it wouldn't matter if it was blabbing away in Chinese. I wouldn't pay attention to it. I wouldn't think there was any truth to it. I wouldn't know. I'd just ignore it. That's free will. I didn't know you could do that anytime. You could just ignore what you're thinking. That's called being in the now. When I played sports, I ignored what I was thinking or I couldn't play sports. And when I wasn't thinking about things, my wisdom guided me toward knowing what to do and where to go and how to be. And if I got in my head, I didn't play very well.
Mm.
So they'd say, Bettinger, get your head in the game. Get your head in the game, which means stop thinking about it. Because when you stop thinking about it, you don't stop thinking. You just now have access to a deeper order of thought. Now, free will is there for everybody, but at low levels of understanding, people don't know that, so they don't utilize their free will very well because they still think those thoughts are true and they keep thinking them, so they don't let them go.
Mm.
Right? At higher levels, you know none of it is true, so letting it go is never a problem. You just come back to the now, and you'll have all the knowing you need to play the game of life well. It's no different than in sports. You just can become better and better at playing the game of life well. I love watching Lionel Messi play soccer.
Oh, you love Messi too?
I love watching him play because he never thinks about anything. He's just walking around. It looked like he's just going for a stroll in the park. Everybody else is running. He's just walking around, but you'll see that his wisdom keeps taking him. He just instinctively, intuitively knows, because his head is so quiet, knows where to go and when to be where. And he's always goes to the right place. Well, not always, but I mean, it's fun watching him. It's just at higher levels of athletics, you have to get more and more comfortable having nothing on your mind. The more you get caught up in your personal thinking, the more you make mistakes, the less well you do, the less you're guided by wisdom, the more you just keep clouding over your responsiveness. When I've worked with professional athletes, when they're having trouble or difficulty, they're just caught back up in thought and don't know it. And as they wake up to that and see it's just thought, it's not truth, as that thinking falls away, they find their natural talents and abilities again. Because they're right there for the taking.
Yeah. I've for a long time used that sentence that you can't both play football and think football. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
And I think everyone who has played any sports knows that when they are up in their head, when they're thinking about how they're doing, what their trainer's thinking, their teammates and the audience, you're going to play pretty bad often. But when you're not, it's almost, when I think about when I played football, when I'm not there, when I'm not present, when I'm, it often goes, well, I play closer to my abilities, the abilities I have, the level of potential. And that just sometimes when you're forced out of your thinking, like if you have to go and intercept another player, if it's football, for example, you are forced out of your head.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting that the less we think, the
See,
better we do.
I would say that we're not forced by anything in the world. It's just in certain situations we use our free will. We know we can't afford to be thinking about something, right? So we give ourselves permission to stop thinking, basically, saying, well, I got to get this ball, and I don't want to be thinking about it right now. So, boom, we go for it. You see, that's free will, too. That's a choice we're making. We may not recognize that it's free will or that we have that choice. At higher levels, you know that that's a choice. At higher levels, you also have respect that when you're not in your intellect, you have no control over what comes, but you have a deeper faith and trust that what does come fresh is going to be perfect. It's going to be right. It's going to be helpful. It's going to be useful.
Yeah. I think I have gone from talking about when I was very interested in NLP and traditional coaching. When I talked about confidence, it was always self-confidence. Like it was me. I had to believe in myself. I had to believe that I could do it.
Yeah.
But I never use self-confidence. But I have noticed that I am very confident. Not in that I'm so great, I have great abilities, but I'm confident in, like you said, if I can show up with nothing on my mind, things often go pretty well. Something will occur to me, even though I don't know when I'm going into a coaching session. You know that when you're going into talking to another person, you have no idea what they're going to say. And therefore you will have no idea what should come up. But if we plan ahead, we won't be able to respond and listen to what shows up in us, the wisdom within us. So yeah, I have to, but that has come with experience, that I had developed a confidence in myself, but more develop a confidence in life, in mind, that I know everything will be all right. Even though at the moment it can look very bad. I can maybe feel very uncomfortable, but I know that even though I will be nervous, insecure, I will worry, I will maybe get a little anxious, at some point my mind will clear.
Yes. Yeah, beautiful.
And that is so, I don't know the English word right now, but that's so securing in some way.
Yes, yeah. It's hopeful. It helps. That is what security is a trust that no matter what's going on outside of me in life, and no matter how bad that gets, I'm living in the world of thought. And that no matter what's going on, when my head clears, I'll always find clarity. I'll always find feelings that reconnect me to life in a positive way. I'll always get new thinking that's helpful. So when you have that kind of trust in what's true already, that's called security. That's when you're secure because it's not dependent upon circumstance. I've had a lot of very, very difficult and painful things happen in my life as I've understood the principles more deeply. No matter what happens, no matter how bad I feel, I know that's just a temporary thought-created experience. I know that behind those clouds is the blue sky of pure consciousness. And I know in that field of consciousness, there's this deeper wisdom, this light, this sun, that when my mind is open, that light shines through and I feel better and I get thinking that's helpful, creative, responsive, nourishing.
Yeah, I'm very. I'm actually in 2 weeks. I'm doing my first speech in front of a group, and I'm very curious if it will be the same as just having a regular conversation with someone, because I can always see in my mind I have made it something else. But I will be very curious when I'm standing there how it will, how things will go. But I can see we're coming to that hour went pretty damn fast.
It did.
But I really love this, Dicken. And I really believe what you have been talking about, we have been talking about, is really something that can be healing for the world. So thanks a lot for joining me in this hour.
You're welcome.
And
thanks, Esben. It's been great talking to you.
And of course, I will put Dicken's information in the information on the link or whatever people want to see it. So if they want to get in touch with you, they can find you through that. And